Okay, now we're going to learn how to graph the cosine function. So we're going to graph y equals cosine x in our calculators. And press, oops, forgot the x. Nope, there it is. Graph. And it looks much the same. The only difference is the sine graph started at the origin and the cosine graph starts on the y-axis. So, my observations, it vacillates between 1 and -1, and it always starts on the y-axis. Make sure you know that. So, see if I can scroll correctly. Consider y equals a cosine of bx. That's the same thing as yesterday, only now it's cosine instead of sine. The amplitude is the absolute value of a, just like yesterday. The period is 2 pi over the absolute value of b, just like yesterday. Amplitude is the vertical height of the graph. The period is the horizontal length, just like yesterday. Now we're going to graph. So graph y equals cosine x. The first thing you need to do is figure out the amplitude. The amplitude is the number in front of cosine, which is 1. The period is the number, it's 2 pi divided by the number in front of x. So 2 pi over 1, which is 2 pi. Now you need to set up your x-axis. You put your period on the right. You break it up into 4 parts. And then you do 2 pi divided by 4, and that gives you pi over 2. And then pi over 2 plus pi over 2 is pi. And pi plus pi over 2 is 3 pi over 2. Label your y-axis. Label your y-axis, and this is going to be -1, and this will be +1. The cosine graph starts at the y-axis. It starts up here, and it goes down. It looks like that. Starts up, and it goes through your first notch, and then down, and then through your second notch, and then up. All right, list the 5 critical points. My highest point is 1, 0. Whoa, I'm writing that backwards. Your highest point is 0, 1, and 2 pi, 1. Your lowest point is pi, -1, and it crosses the x-axis at pi over 2, 0, and 3 pi over 2, 0. All right. Graph y equals, I don't want to do that one. I want to do this one. List the 5 critical, I'm reading the wrong thing. I'm losing it. Graph y equals cosine of 3x. I'm tired of looking at that color. All right, so graph y equals 3 cosine of x. The amplitude is the number written in front of the word cosine, which is 1, because there's not one written. The period is 2 pi divided by the number written in front of x, so 3. So you put your period all the way on the right. And then you divide it by 4. So 2/3 divided by 4 is pi over 6. This should start looking familiar to you. We've done this a lot. You break it up into 4 pieces. Pi over 6. Pi over 6 plus pi over 6 is pi over 3. And pi over 3 plus pi over 6 is pi over 2. Now you label your amplitude. -1, 1. Now you're ready to graph the cosine function. Cosine starts at the y-axis. So it starts up here. It goes down. It looks like that. Okay, now we have to list the 5 critical points. Your highest point is 0, 1. Your lowest point is pi over 3, -1. And the way you write these in whatever order doesn't matter. And the highest point is 2 pi over 3, 1. crosses the x-axis is pi over 6, 0, and pi over 2, 0. Make sure you can list your critical points. All right, graph. Y equals 3 cosine of 2 over 3x. The amplitude is the number written in front of the word cosine, so that's 3. The period is 2 pi divided by the number in front of the x. And that will give you 3 pi. You put the x-axis, you put your period all the way over, and you break it up into 4 pieces, and then divide it by 4, so this is 3 pi over 4. And then you keep adding 3 pi over 4, so 3 over 4 times 2 is 3 pi over 2, and that plus 3 over 4 is 9 pi over 4. So 3 pi over 2 and 9 pi over 4. Okay, your amplitude is 3. And cosine graphs always start on the y-axis. So I start up here. I go down. And it looks like that. Then I would list the 5 critical points, but I think you can do that by now. All right, I want you to give the amplitude and period of the following graph. So a cosine graph starts up, goes down, and back up. So mine starts here and ends here. It goes up, down, and back up. That's one period. So my period is 2 pi. My amplitude is 4, because I look at my y-axis and I see 4. Okay, so y equals a cosine of bx, and I need you to fill in the spots. You already know a. A is equal to the number written in front of cosine. A is equal to the amplitude. You've got that. The period is 2 pi over b. You know the period. You don't know b. So you have to do 2 pi over b equals 2 pi. When the variable's down low, you switch them, you know. So you get 2 pi over 2 pi equals b, and 2 pi over 2 pi is 1. So y equals 4 cosine of x is the answer. All right, when you have y equals negative cosine x, then the graph has been reflected. Do not make this harder than it is. So you'll see what I mean. The amplitude is the number written in front of the cosine, but it's the absolute value. So that's going to be 4. The period is 2 pi divided by the number in front of x. So 2 pi over 3. You put it all the way over here, and then you break it up into 4 pieces. You divide your period by 4, and when you do that, you get 3 pi over 4. Or is it pi over 6? Okay, pi over 6. Let me scroll up and check. We've definitely done this one before, but I want to make sure I'm doing it right. Yep, it's pi over 6. Okay, so pi over 6, pi over 3, and pi over 2. Then you label your amplitude. All right, then you need a graph. It's negative cosine, so it starts down here. I missed my mark a little bit, but you can straighten up yours. Mine's a little to the left, but I think you can fix yours. All right, so if it's negative, starts down there. I'm going to do this one now. This one, the period is 2 pi. It takes 2 pi to start and finish. So the period is 2